Almost Memorial Day. Here comes someone running down the hill. All right, what's this? Average Joe number 6 walks. 7, 6, 7, something like that. It's a little windy out, but what's it like 70 degrees, almost dark. So people like the horror stories. I've had some comments on that, surprisingly enough. So I'm gonna talk about this for a second because it kind of irritates me. The millions and millions of trolls out there. So here I am on Facebook just for a second, right? And Lopez is on there, flashing off something. You know, she's like 52, 53 or something like that. Looks like she's 25. So I put on there, yeah, I mean, I'd look good too if I had as much pleasure as she had. So, of course, I kid you not, 10 minutes later, I get someone on there, this and that, basically to say, well, have a good good luck to you and whatever you do in your endeavors. Of course, it's, I don't need you, all this other stuff. Yeah, thought to myself, well, have a nice day. Hello. So, let's see where it's windy. Sorry for that. That sounds gonna kill. All right, not supposed to rain. We had horror story. Take 5. Click. So, when you get into management, a lot of things comes with it. A lot of baggage. So, one of the horror stories is the complaints you get. And I mean, just sometimes these complaints are just, are you kidding me? Really? Daddy. I mean, I'm also a consumer too. Now, whether it's a restaurant or buying clothes or buying a hat or whatever it may be, just putting yourself in that person's place. Hey, how you doing? Putting yourself in that person's place to really see, okay, you know, maybe they're not having a good day. Maybe someone's sick. Maybe they're sick and they're still going to work. What's it like? More than 50% of the current workforce is working hurt every day. So these people out there, I want this, I want that, bitch, 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 complain, complain, complain. And you wonder what they do for a living. A lot of these people don't work at all. They're, they're getting all these subsidies. They're on Medicaid. No, don't get me wrong. Everybody needs help. Some of these people are 3, 4 generations of the same nonsense. It's like, you guys are all able-bodied people. Get out and find a job. There's millions and millions and millions of jobs out there. Ridiculous. I can find 2 jobs. Can't find one. That's my slogan. I should be there as my new slogan for Average Joe. I can find 2 jobs. You can't find one. It's amazing how many people can't find a job. Anyways, I was just thinking about that. People just complaining. I'm like, okay, if you're on the other end and thinking about, gee, I'm just working, and all the complaints I'm getting, it's like, oh my God, it's ridiculous. Very unsettling. So, excuse me, tip when you can tip, or just smile. What? What was this? Probably, my wife and I probably a couple months ago now, we went to a restaurant. And of course, a lot of the restaurants, they're hard up for staff, so they're hiring people with absolutely no experience. And you had this couple, older couple, and you had this young waiter. work, 3 or 4 or 5 tables, he's running around trying to do his thing, trying to learn the craft. And you had these 2 older people bitching and moaning, bitching and moaning the whole time. My food's cold. This isn't exactly what I ordered. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, can I get some sort of rebate? Can I get some, I got this. I'm like, really? Look it. If you can't afford to go out to the restaurant, don't go out to the restaurant. It's that simple. Stay your ass home if you can't afford it. There's nothing wrong with either or. But don't go out and pick at someone working brand new and seriously trying to make $1 while you sit there. They're trying to wait on you. And you're just going to sit there, bitch, and complain and try and get your money, try and get your food for free. Now, where the hell's that money coming from? The I don't care group of, all right, well, guess what? Either the restaurant or the restaurant owner, I should say, is going to have to take a hit on that, or people aren't going to get the tips like you're supposed to, or the pays. I mean, someone's got to come up with that, right? Money ain't for free unless you're unless you're unless you're a stupid government. They just keep printing that stuff. Don't even get me started on that. I don't want to get banned. But I mean, you were just complaining. Think about the person. What do they say? Hey, good Lord, I got a dog here. Get going. Yeah. What are you doing now? Look at this dog just out here. Look at this. Yeah, you shouldn't. You should be out and about. Wherever you're from, you need to go back. Get back in that house. It's crazy. Look at this. Just running the fields, just running around. Scared. These dogs, I'm telling you. You think I lived on a farm. How many do you have in a dog? But this thing just running around, letting itself loose. Look at it. Anyways. Oh, Flint, Michigan. Stopping by to say hello, drop to the support, stay healthy, average Joe. Thanks there, Flint, Michigan. Nice to see you, man. Anyways, so I was back to, I think the old time saying is, you don't know someone till you walk a mile in their shoes. Boy, isn't that true more today than it ever was. And the older you get, the more you think about it. If you're the other person on the other side that is the worker trying to provide the service versus you being on the other side being a devil's advocate and just anybody could be a devil's advocate. Just pick and pick and pick and pick. So anyways, let's talk about horror stories in therapy. Guys, everybody likes those. So horror story number one. Horror story number one. So it's probably 10 years ago at least. So I was doing inpatient. I was working a weekend, trying to pay off those stupid school loans faster. So I was picking up extra weekends. Me and my very good friend. I did those for quite a while, working those Saturdays and Sundays, those extra Saturdays and Sundays to pay off the amount of school loan debt I had. That's over with. Well, that's another whole story. Talk about hey, you signed up for it, you pay for it. The taxpayer has to pay for someone else's school loans. You signed up for it, you pay for it. I didn't sign your stupid debt. You did. You pay for it. Anyways, I'm real sore about that. But the horse at some point, what am I here? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes into this, still haven't said my horror story yet. Sorry about that. So, this horror story, like I said, about 10 years ago, inpatient, working Saturday, and it was one of these new spinal surgeries at the time. It's probably, it's longer than 10 years ago. I've been down here almost 10 years. It's probably, I call them closer to 20 years. Seepers. Time is flying by. And so it was this new, at the time, artificial discs, and so you had to meet a certain criteria to even get the surgery. I mean, you had to be like super fit, really no comorbidities, which means just, hey, how you doing? There's no diabetes, no blood pressure. So this new disc replacement, really not a fusion. They literally scrape the old disc out and they put a hardware based disc in the spine. So just like you would do a knee replacement, a hip replacement, they had a disc replacement. And so this person, poor person, don't know why they thought a cervical disc replacement was a great idea. Cervical spine is super, super complicated. I mean, you have the vertebral arteries that run down the next to the peripheral nerves. If you can think of a straight line of your spine, you know, you have literally that runs up and feeds your brain. This thing called the vertebral artery. It also gives obviously blood flow to other areas, but as well as your carotids. But I mean, the disc is super, super tiny. The vertebrae are very tiny in your neck. Why they didn't start out in the lower part of the spine or even mid thoracic would be more smart, because you have your ribs to stabilize your spine at least. Anyways, so they did it in the neck. Literally, what a nightmare. This poor girl. They ended up having to. She was fine. We did the evaluation. And probably like 4 hours afterwards. I mean, she was in a cervical collar. I mean, this neck wasn't moving, so it wasn't from anything we did. It was complications from the surgery, and they ended up having to go right back in and take our old disc, that artificial disc out, and do a fusion. And you're asking yourself, what the hell happened? What the hell happened? That's stupid. There are so many forces going on all the time in our body that we take for granted. So there's tons of pressure constantly, PSI, in your spine, and when you rotate, all pressure changes and stuff like that. But just swallowing, breathing, like I am, all these things place pressure differently throughout our spine. Specifically, we're talking about the spine, and so it slipped, it shifted, and you don't need. We're talking millimeters, not centimeters, not inches. We're talking millimeters. Okay, millimeters are really, really, really tiny. If you remember back in school, okay, 2.54 centimeters is 1 inch. So 0.0. Okay, I'm gonna get in the math of this, but needless to say, it's really small, and so it doesn't have to shift much because you have so many complex things around your neck. That's why I always scratch my head. Why the hell they start in the neck? I mean, there's too many things that can go wrong. Excuse me. I can understand that because you're dealing with a smaller structure. It doesn't need to be as large and complications that route, but it wasn't me. I mean, obviously, I'm thinking just from a physical therapist standpoint. But yeah, they had to take it out. So not even 12 hours later, throw her back in, take it out, and do a fusion anyways. And then who knows what happened? I mean, I only saw her as an inpatient. I never saw her as an outpatient therapist or anything like that. So, but you figure the scarring and having to go in and shift the throat around, the esophagus, the trachea, you know, uh, all that stretching and inflammation, and I'm sure that poor girl, you're hurting from the first surgery. Forget having to go right back into the same spot again. It puts you under again, right? I mean, anytime you put someone under, sedate them, it's always a risk. You don't come out of it. So hi. So you never know. Uh, so that's what I think. So horror story number one. Horror story number 2, same idea, except for this time, I saw him on an outpatient and it was a lumbar spine, and they did a replacement. And in this replacement, they it ended up fusing itself. And so that's right, we're talking about an artificial disc put in the spine. And so I was looking up the research here. This was probably 15 years ago now. So I was doing the research, and probably 15 years ago, I was like, okay, let me look at this, see if it's got any better. And so what they found out, this is peer-reviewed journals, and if you want to know what peer review is you can look into that. But basically, it's very rigorous panels that look at your research and say whether this stuff is garbage or not. It's the basics of it, not getting into the silly details of statistics and research. But anyways, they found out that it fuses. Your spine naturally fuses around the hardware back then. Now, I haven't looked into it probably 10 years now at least, but yeah, you go through all that surgery, and the whole idea of having an artificial disc versus the fusion, so you don't lose any of your mobility. You're really, it lifts up your spine. I mean, that's supposed to be the gold standard. The cat's meow. Well, within 5 years, the darn thing fused anyway. So crazy. So now you have this hardware that's literally fused within the spine, and you can't do anything anyways. I mean, so there's no difference whether they did screws and plates, or so it naturally fused. So that's a horror story right there. So guess what? Horror story number 3. That was 2, all about the spine, about these disc replacements. Guess what happens? Let's talk about degenerative disc. Heard that so much. I got degenerative disc disease. It's not a disease, okay? The disc is not diseased by anything. So that's the first thing. It was mistermed many moons ago, and they've never decided to change it. Like everything else in healthcare, or not in healthcare. That's not really the correct term. More medical terminology. It should have never been DDD, or degenerative disc disease. Now, it is a naturally occurring process. I've said this in the past, and this naturally occurring process, okay, as we age, okay, now aging isn't a disease either yet, unless you can somehow reverse it. And yes, there's a bunch of scientists out there and geneticists talking about turning back the hands of time. Well, until that happens, it's not a disease. So, yeah, let's go ahead and keep capping those telomeres. If anybody knows exactly what I'm saying, leave a comment down below. If not, oh well, we should look into what telomeres are, or telomeres, and genetics. But that's a story for another time. So you have a normal height of a disc, and as we age, it kind of starts to thin down. So it loses its height, its density, its viscosity. So it just kind of wears. And like I said in my last video, L5S1 is known for that because of the angle. It's not an angle like this. It's a almost like an oblique 45-degree angle that L5S1 is. And so that disc takes a hell of a lot of beating. And because we weren't supposed to be upright, we were supposed to be on all fours. We're not supposed to be. Our spines are designed to be quadruped, not bipeds. So which means walking on 4 versus 2 legs, hands. Anyways, so what happens? It's not the almost lost the phone. It's not the actual degeneration or the wearing of the disc that's causing all the issues. It's the inflammatory process that happens because of it. So it's the secondary. So when you get treated for degenerative disc, you're really treating the inflammation that's causing all the problems. And the wearing of the facet joints, the arthritis that happens because as the disc loses its height on either side of the disc are the facet joints that I've shown in all. You can see any of my back videos, and it will show you what I talked about in the last video, the video before, the facet arthritis. That's really what's causing a lot of people's back pain. It's not their disc. It's not the degeneration, okay? It's literally the facet joint gets inflamed, and it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to really get it to calm back down again and resolve your symptoms if you do the things that I've shown you before. So I ceramic coated my car, which is like 7 or 8 steps to do it correctly, which I did. It took me about 2.5 days to do it, and I'm hurting from it. So, and then after that, I didn't learn my lesson. I sanded down, power washed my front porch, and repainted it. So I didn't let myself recover from that. Okay, 2 days later, or a weekend later. Then I went out and went to the gym and just did light weights, but I already was in an inflammatory phase. And so even those light weights aggravated it. And then I went and mowed the lawn because the lawn's got to be mowed, right? So yeah, I'm doing better, but I had to take some Tylenol. For me, Tylenol works just as well, if not better, than anti-inflammatories. Tylenol is really just a pain reliever. It's not an NSAID. It's not not anti-inflammatory steroid. So non-anti-inflammatory, jeepers drug, jeepers. I'll get it right here, people. So now all those Aleve, ibuprofens, naproxens, prednisones, they're all processed through our kidneys. So that's how you can damage your kidneys if you take too much. But this stuff works really well for a lot of people because it stops the inflammatory process or slows it down. The problem with that is you do need a healthy inflammatory process to heal. So a lot of people keep causing that inflammatory process to calm down, and they don't really heal. It becomes chronic. So we talked about that, where you need to go through the proper healing phases as well as the strengthening phases, the recovery phases, and then, a nice walking or strengthening program after that. So I talked about that. But you need to go through those phases. But Tylenol, on the other hand, it's easier on your stomach, usually doesn't cause a GI bleed, and it gets processed through your liver. So it doesn't get processed through your kidneys. So that's the difference between the two. Now, you have to watch out because you can't be taking tons and tons of Tylenol either, because you'll damage your liver. You don't want to damage your liver. That would be very foolish. So you don't want to take any more than about 3,000 milligrams of Tylenol in a day. So you got to be very mindful. And the same thing with ibuprofen. You want to be dealing with a lot of ibuprofen either, because it'll damage your kidneys. And a lot of people, that's what's happened. And it isn't just one dosage of the ibuprofen. It's the months and months or years and years of intermittently taking ibuprofen. Next thing you know, you're like a stage 2 kidney. I mean, there's 4 stages and stuff like that to kidney failure, but it can really throw you into kidney problems, especially if your kidneys are already affected or damaged for some other phase or some other reason. So there's plenty of reasons why you can have kidney problems. But, excuse me. So just be mindful of that. So that's my horror story. Those three horror stories. So the 2 fusions, the fancy disc replacement and degenerative disc. I didn't say the word disease, it's just degeneration. You have it everywhere. You have your knees, your hips, anything that's got cartilage in it, or it's got some sort of synovial fluid. It wears. You just have to be mindful of the inflammatory process. If you can stay ahead of that, you'll be fine. You'll recover much faster. But I'm going to leave you all for this one. Look up and keep smiling. See you next time, folks.